This Chaser News Alert is proudly brought to you by The Crean Diaries. It's the book with an approval rating of 19%. Willy Wonka's Whipple Cross-Promotionalicious Delight Bar and the Louisiana Tourism Board. Experience the all-New Orleans.
Welcome to another Chaser News Alert. I'm Julian Morrow, and making news this week. The United Nations celebrates its 60th anniversary with another pointless conference. Kevin Rudd appears on the 7:30 Report, Lateline, A Current Affair, Sunday and The Insiders to deny he's addicted to the media. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-il abandons his nuclear program in return for American hair care products. But now to our top story. The Australian Labor Party is seeking a permanent injunction to stop Mark Latham from doing any more publicity interviews for the Latham Diaries, or indeed from ever speaking in public again. If successful, the injunction could prevent Latham sabotaging Labor's chances in the next election, a role the ALP claims is the exclusive right of Kim Beazley. The Chaser's Chaz Licciardello is at the Supreme Court. Chaz, what's the latest?
Julian, the case for silencing Mr Latham is being presented by Glenn Milne and Paul Kelly. Now, they've assembled a strong argument based upon hearsay, hindsight and self-righteousness.
So the very same techniques that Latham used to write his diaries.
Exactly.
And party leader Kim Beazley addressed the court this morning?
Yes, he said that Mr Latham should be grateful for the ALP because without them, Mr Latham would never have acquired the kind of bitterness that's now making him Megan.
What was Mr Latham's response?
He said his top priority was to go home and look after his family, at least until he turns around and crucifies them in print too.
Thank you, Chaz. In other news, the government has unveiled its new plans for the sale of Telstra. Chaser analyst Andrew Hansen is standing by. Andrew, how will the new round of Telstra shares be sold to investors?
Well, Julian, in a somewhat desperate move, the government is offering the shares for $2 each in discount stores like this one.
So essentially the shares are going out the door at crazy prices?
Yes, just like Sol Trujillo will when they activate his termination clause.
And what are market analysts saying?
Well, Julian, for years we've had trouble figuring out whether Telstra was a brutal monopoly or a mismanaged dog. In fact, it's both at once.
How is Telstra rating Mr Trujillo's performance?
Well, Philip Burgess admitted he wouldn't advise his mother to hire Trujillo as her CEO.
Thank you, Andrew. Now to sport, and Sydney Swans captain Barry Hall has been suspended for striking, not by the tribunal, but under the government's new industrial relations reforms. Meanwhile, the AFL has announced its plan to include a Victorian team in the grand final by 2008. AFL chief Andrew Demetriou says he's determined Victorians should become part of the game, and not just its sex scandals. But despite the lack of a Victorian team in the grand final, the excitement at the MCG is reaching fever pitch. Let's cross now to our chief sports commentator, Dominic Knight in Melbourne. Dom, word has it the AFL wants to transplant a franchise from Western Australia into Victoria in the hope of developing some football culture there.
Yes, and as a Fremantle fan, I find that outrageous. If the Dockers move, I'm never wearing purple, white, green and red ever again.
Probably not a bad thing. Meanwhile, I believe the Victorian clubs maintain they're being very competitive.
That's right. Carlton President Ian Collins insists that the competition for the wooden spoon is more intense than ever before. And with good reason. These things can be sold for $1 each, 2 million more, and Carlton might break even.
Thanks, Dom. That's all for now, but log on to next week's Chaser News Alert when we'll cover President Bush's plan to rebuild New Orleans with faith-based levies, the Queensland Premier Peter Beattie's grateful announcement that Dr. Death has slashed hospital waiting lists, and Hugh Jackman receives an Academy Award for his acceptance speech at the Emmy Awards for his hosting of the Tony Awards. That's coming up on your next Chaser News Alert.